Now, Thales is actually not totally original. A lot of the techniques that he learned for measuring things actually came from the Egyptians.
He took those ideas and made them abstract, scientific. He came up with principles rather than just practical techniques. You all are familiar with the Pythagorean theorem about right triangles. Well, you know, Pythagoras didn't come up with that.
Pythagoras reasoned that in any right triangle, whether small or big, whether on the earth or in the heavens, even if it's a triangle that doesn't exist, in any right triangle, the square of the hypotenuse will always be equal to the sum of the square of the other two sides.
In any right triangle, the square of the hypotenuse will always be equal to the sum of the square of the other two sides.
Even if it's a triangle that doesn't exist.
In any right triangle, the square of the hypotenuse will always be equal to the sum of the square of the other two sides. Philosophical scientific theorems. Philosophical scientific theorems.
Thales, turning his analytical mind towards the nature of the universe, proposed that the first principle of all things is water. Now you may be thinking, what's the big deal? I could have said that. Well. Anaxamander did his master one better by pushing the origin or first principle backwards. And this something he called the unlimited or the boundless.
Or the boundless. The boundless. Boundless.
Backwards.
Somewhat. Backwards.
A sort of Carl Sagan cosmic soup.
Backwards.
Doesn't he know the first element can't be an element? The first principle can't be an element?
Backwards.
Well, I think what's going on here is not that Anaxamenes is taking a step backward. Anaxamenes. Whatever. Anaxamander. In other words, whatever the first principle is, we've got to answer the question, how can one thing be many things?
How can a first principle separate into under the four elements and move on to make all of matter?
Whatever.
Well, Anaxamenes had an answer.
Empedocles, who flourished about 440 BC and was thus a younger contemporary of Parmenides, though his doctrine had in some ways more affinity with that of Heraclitus. He was a citizen of Anaxagoras on the south coast of Sicily. He was a democratic politician who at the same time claimed to be a god. In most Greek cities, and especially in those of Sicily, there was a constant conflict between democracy and tyranny. The leaders of whichever party was at the moment defeated were executed or exiled. Empedocles in due course was banished. It seems probable that in youth he was more or less Orphic, that before his exile he combined politics and science, and that it was only in later life, as an exile, that he became a prophet. Legend
Had much to say about Empedocles.
He was supposed to have worked miracles. He could control the winds, we are told. He restored to life a woman who had seemed dead for 30 days. Finally, it is said, he died by leaping into the crater of Etna to prove that he was a god. Great Empedocles, that ardent soul, leapt into Etna, and was roasted whole. Lucretius, who was influenced by him, praised him highly as a poet. His most important contribution to science was his discovery of air as a separate substance. He also discovered at least one example of centrifugal force. He knew that there is sex in plants, and he had a theory of evolution. Countless tribes of mortal creatures were scattered abroad, endowed with all manner of forms, a wonder to behold. There were heads without necks, arms without shoulders, eyes without foreheads, solitary limbs seeking for union. These things joined together as each might chance. There were shambling creatures with countless hands, creatures with faces and breasts, creatures with the bodies of oxen, and others with the faces of oxen and the bodies of men. There were hermaphrodites. As regards astronomy, he knew that the moon shines by reflected light, and thought that this is also true of the sun. He said that light takes time to travel, but so little time that we cannot observe it. He was the founder of the Italian school of medicine, and the medical school which sprang from him influenced both Plato and Aristotle.
Earth, air, fire, and water as the four elements. Each of these was everlasting, but they could be mixed in different proportions, and thus produce the changing, complex substances that we find in the world.
They were combined by love and separated by strife. Love and strife, love and strife. There were periods when love was in the ascendant,
and others when strife was the stronger.
There had been a golden age when love was completely victorious. In that age, men worshipped only the Cyprian Aphrodite. The changes in the world are not governed by any purpose,
but only by chance and necessity.
There is a cycle. When the elements have been thoroughly mixed by love, strife gradually sorts them out again. When strife has separated them, love gradually reunites them. Thus, every compound substance is temporary. Only the elements, together with love and strife, are everlasting.
Whatever.
Empedocles held that the material world is a sphere. That in the Golden Age, strife was outside and love inside. Then gradually strife entered and love was expelled. Until, at the worst, strife will be wholly within and love wholly without the sphere. In the Golden Age, as already mentioned, men worshipped only Aphrodite.
Whatever.
There is an oracle of necessity, an ancient ordinance of the gods, eternal and sealed fast by broad oaths, that whenever one of the demons, whose portion is length of days, has sinfully polluted his hands with blood, or followed strife and forsworn himself, he must wander thrice 10,000 years from the abodes of the blessed, being born throughout the time in all manners of mortal forms, changing one toilsome path of life for another. For the mighty air drives him into the sea, and the sea spews him forth upon the dry earth. Earth tosses him into the beams of the blazing sun, and he flings him back to the eddies of air. One takes him from the other, and all reject him. One of these I now am, an exile and a wanderer from the gods, for that I put my trust in insensate strife. Ah, woe is me, that the pitiless day of death did not destroy me, ere ever I wrought evil deeds of devouring with my lips. Abstain wholly from laurel leaves. Wretches, utter wretches, keep your hands from beans.
Songwriters, physicians, and princes. And thence they rise up as gods exalted in honor, sharing the hearth of the other gods in the same table, free from human woes, safe from destiny, and incapable of hurt.